rectangular geographical territory known as the Brembo Island is enclosed by the Adda and Brembo rivers and by the slopes of Mount Canto Basso. It is a highly populated and productive area, yet its green areas have been preserved and still preserve the characteristic flora and fauna. The Brembo River has retained its pristine wilderness, which can be enjoyed through well-trodden trails along its banks, along which there are many monuments of great historical and artistic importance. Our journey begins where the Brembo flows into the Adda River, closing off the southern tip of Bergamo Island in the beautiful setting of the Tasca, Morlacchi and Moretti villas in the municipality of Brembate. The Morlacchi villa is situated on the right bank of the Brembo River. Part of its construction could date back from as far back as the early 1400s. The layout of the building is U-shaped, typical of villas of the time. The villa is owned by the Gritti Morlacchi family. It has terraced gardens that descend down the river where one can delight in the characteristic Filarola dam built between 1880 and 90, and the Treviglio irrigation ditches that date back to the early 1300s, which are used to irrigate the land in Lower Bergamo. The Moretti castle was often the subject of disputes between the Brembate and Treviglio families for the control of water flowing into Brembate from the Brembo River for irrigation in the Treviglio countryside. It has been suggested that its first elements were constructed around the year 950. In around 1360, however, the castle appears to have been owned by the Suadis, a well-known family from Bergamo. In the 15th century, it set the stage for fratricidal conflicts between the Guelfis and Ghibellinis. In the 17th century, the Tasca family became the owners of the building, and in the first decades of the 19th century, it became the property of the Moretti family. Currently, the castle still retains structures of when it belonged to the Suadis, such as the old pebbled stone wall, the entablature portico, and wooden beam ceiling. The tower is the only remaining direct evidence of it being an ancient castle. An important feature of the landscape is the Tasca Villa, dating back to the second half of the 19th century, which was home to Vittore Tasca, a distinguished member of the contemporary society, partisan of Garibaldi, and a friend of Alexander Dumas, and of painter Giovanni Carnovali, also known as the Pico, the Little One. From an architectural point of view, the estate is divided into three strategic positions. The romantic garden, planted with fine, century-old aromatic flora such as cedars and magnolas, is a prime example of the 19th century landscape designed as described by D'Annunzio. The ancient bridge of San Vittore, which runs over the Brembo River, has endured for centuries. The structure is of late Roman or medieval origin. Roughly dating back to the same period is the Church of San Vittore, of early medieval origins, if not earlier. The church consists of two main sections: an underground part consisting of a subterranean cave and an exterior construction from the 15th or 16th century, formed by singular rectangular structure equipped with a small bell tower. Inside the cave is an ancient fresco depicting the crucifixion, while in the church above there are some good quality frescoes in excellent condition dating from the 16th and 17th centuries. Also in the municipality of Brembate, at the centre of a small rural village about 2 kilometres from hamlet of Grignano, lies the ancient Romanesque church of San Fermo in Bedesco, which since the 16th century has been a subsidiary of the Marne parish. From historical records, its existence can be traced back to as far back as 1158. The building is aligned on an east-west orientation. The facade has undergone several renovations over the centuries. Worthy of mention too are the bas-relief zoomorphic representations of the lunette, which was transferred there from the facade of a private building in Grignano. Inside, a dome covers the presbytery and the pillars which support it, and the octagonal frame above reveal decorated capitals. The apse still preserves traces of frescoes decorations dating from the 12th century, with the representations of the four evangelists in medallions and Christ Pantocrator in Vesicus Piscis, also known as mandola. Along the river, in the locality of Marne di Filago, in the woods and on the outskirts of land used for cultivation, an intriguing pedestrian path has been discovered, which gives visitors a chance to take a peaceful stroll along the bank and, at the same time, allows them to closely observe the flora and the picturesque landscape of the gorge and the Dordo stream. A stroll along the Dordo offers vistas of great beauty, such as the rising castle of Marne, which has always characterized the history of the ancient town of the same name. The Marne Castle has always been considered an unconquerable fortress. Thanks to its strategic position, it is perched in fact on a rocky spur under which the Dordo River flows into the nearby Brembo River. Outside, the typical medieval structure has been retained but altered several times, in particular the neo-medieval revisitation in the early 20th century with its crenellated tower and arched windows, while the interior is reminiscent of Renaissance homes with a simple L-shaped structure, its garden and the walled well. Nearby is the church of San Bartolomeo. It is a Romanesque ecclesiastic building dating back to the first half of the 12th century. From the original building, the semicircular apse, particularly interesting for its external and internal decoration that characterises it, has been kept in near perfect condition. The columns of the apse merge together at the top by means of a series of little arches that rest on finely carved capitals and simple pedestals, some of which are decorated and carved with anthropomorphic facets. Leaving the village of Marne in the municipality of Madone, one of the most important testaments to the industrialization of the island is still visible. On the site of an ancient furnace in 1885, Gaspare Zineroni built the very modern Hoffman kiln. The central part of the chimney towered 30 meters into the air, with a circular bowl-shaped corridor running all the way around it. The corridor had several openings to the outside, and each one a small chamber made from insulating material was built. In this way, they could separate the various stages of the cooking without turning off the furnace. Going up the Brembo River, we encountered two major historical monuments in the municipality of Bonate Sotto. Right in the heart of the village, the church of San Giorgio in Bonate Sotto is one of the most interesting examples of intact Baroque architecture and decoration in the entire territory of Bergamo. The construction stands on the site of the ancient medieval church. The fresco decoration of the vault of the presbytery and the dome painted by Pietro Ricci from Lucca stand out in particular, as well as the main altarpiece that the Venetian Francesco Capella painted in 1760. Noteworthy too are some paintings of the side chapels, the baptismal font and the splendid marble pulpit. The church's barrel vault has an interesting series of Baroque frescoes depicting stories from the Old Testament and the life of St. George, inserted between figures of the virtues and lavish frames held up by angels in stucco. The ancient Basilica of St. Julia in Bonate Sotto, now the cemetery chapel, stands majestically in the town of Lesina, where the archaeological findings from the Neolithic and Roman period give testimony to settlements from prehistoric times. According to certain documents, the building dates back to the first half of the 12th century. The building is Romanesque in style, and the basilica layout was originally composed of 3 naves with their apses and 5 bays. However, only 3 apses, the first bay and the section of its perimeter wall, remain intact. The pillars hold up stylized and floral capitals depicting hunting and war scenes. In the central apsis, frescoes painted in 1795 by the Aureli brothers from Ticino are visible. In its centre, the patron saints of Buonarroti are depicted, namely St. George and Santa Giulia, and at the sides, St. Sebastian and St. Rocco are invoked against sickness and plague. Continuing along the Brembo River Trail, we come across Ponte San Pietro, which is the bridge of St. Peter, one of the most populated villages in the island. Its name obviously originates from the presence of a small bridge over the river from the annexed small church dedicated to St. Peter, reference to which has been made since 881. The very first church, as rebuilt, stands on the site of the Chiesa Vecchia. The statues of the churchyard belong to A. Maria Pirovano, carved between the years 1745 and 1748, as well as the coat of arms of the town of Ponte San Pietro, which bears the date 1747. Inside, there are 3 paintings by Giovanni Carobbio il Vecchio, 1691 to 1752. On the choir, a depiction of St. Anne by Piero Ronzelli from around 1560 to 1620, and the 15 Mysteries of the Holy Rosary dated to the 19th century by Luigi Galizzi. The church is also home to a splendid nativity scene diorama. These nativity scenes and the work of sculptures from all over the world attract many visitors year after year. The Stowlong Manor House of the 13th century has been renovated several times, including once at the end of the 1800s, with tenements for workers. The outer walls still conserve frescoes from the Renaissance period. The first floor of the east side, with walls covered with frescoes of the 15th century, houses the Vanni Rossi 1894 to 1973 art gallery, which is the result of a large collection of works by the local painter, which the family donated to the municipality of Ponte San Pietro. During World War II, Ponte San Pietro was frequently bombarded because the bridges allowed the supply of war material between Bergamo and Milan. The bridges were not damaged, but bombs dropped from the aircraft devastated most of the surrounding areas. In one of the main squares, under a memorial chapel to the fallen men from Ponte San Pietro during the war, it is still possible today to see the air raid shelter built in 1944, which dug into the hill. Ponte San Pietro was the only town in the province of Bergamo to suffer serious damage from the bombing. Close by, the humpback Briolo Bridge, made entirely from stone, is still a key route to neighbouring village. Legend has it that the bridge was built by the devil. A lover sold her soul to be able to easily cross to see her sweetheart, who was on the other side. And so, in one night, the infernal powers built the passage. In reality, it was built at the end of the 17th century. The Briolo Bridge connects Ponte San Pietro with the city of Brembate, where the Torre del Sole is located, the Tower of the Sun. Torre del Sole is one of the most comprehensive planetariums in Italy. Located in Brembate, it aims to make astronomical science accessible to as wide and a diverse an audience as possible, promoting educational activities focused on an active participation of the audience. The structure consists of a digital planetarium, which is the first to be installed in Italy among the top 30 in the world, which houses a projection dome 8 meters in diameter and can seat up to 52. A refractor telescope, a dual command heliostat for the interception of solar radiation, a multimedia room which seats 120, an astro shop and the planetarium park. On your first visit to Brembo, be sure not to miss the 2 historical manor houses. The first is Villa Mappelli Mozzi in the municipality of Ponte San Pietro. Its back facade of almost 40 meters, the magnificent avant corps and sidewalls make it one of the most magnificent neoclassical villas in the province. The original building core was built in the late 1600s, perhaps on some pre-existing remains, and then resumed and completed at the end of the 1700s by the Mozzi family, which then became the Mappelli Mozzi family. The architect was surely very close to Pier Marini, since the building has clear allusions to the Villa Reale in Monza, built by Pier Marini between 1776 and 1780. In the municipality of Passaggio, the ancient Palazzo Furietti Carrara is now a museum. The first documented evidence of the palace dates back to 1559. On the ground floor, the property has preserved its Renaissance appearance. The first floor is the fruit of a late 18th century rearrangement. Through the portico painted with grotesque motifs and lunettes, we enter the frescoed rooms, which date from the end of the 16th century by the painter Giovanni Paolo Cavagna from Bergamo, which are composed of the Saloon of Hercules and smaller rooms dedicated to Susanna, Giuditta and Apollo. Only some visible traces remain of some frescoes, after the last private owners of the building tore them down in the first half of the 20th century.